Live from the Jersey Shore to the world. Get up, get out, do something. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. Take the show wherever you go. Download the free Radio Pup app for your smartphone or tablet. Join the conversation. 732-505-1160. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Listen online at WOBMAM.com.
Good morning and welcome back. Thanks for sharing part of your morning with us. I'm Ken Malinger, local small business owner, in for Jeremy Grunin today. You are listening to Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin, streaming live at WOBMAM.com, 1160 and 1310 on your radio AM dial, and live on the Radio Pup app at 1160 News Talk Radio. We are broadcasting from the beautiful Town Square Media Tower right here in downtown Toms River and across this great country at WOBMAM.com. I'm very pleased this morning to have our guest, Dr. Robert Khoo, whose profession has brought him from Canada to Denver, through California at Santa Rosa, and now at the beautiful New Jersey Shore. Dr. Robert Khoo, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ken.
Share a little bit about yourself, your training, your area of expertise with our listeners.
Well, I'm a colorectal surgeon, or better known as the Rear Admiral. So training, how do you do this? You have to go through medical school. So
right.
I'm a Canadian, so I went to a Canadian medical school in Calgary, Alberta. But after working, I graduated in 81, and then I did my surgical training, and that's 5 years. And then you have to be a specialist trained, so that's a year of fellowship in colon and rectal surgery in Minnesota. Then your laws require me to go back to the Canada, so I did. I went back to Canada after I trained in Minnesota.
After that year?
Yeah, after that year, and I practiced in Canada for a few years.
Got good at it before we let you back into the United States.
That's
very
the thing.
good, Doc.
Yeah.
Very good.
Right. So I was recruited in 92. They gave me a call and say, hey, how'd you like to come down to Denver, Colorado? I said, sure, why not?
Excellent.
And I did.
Excellent. And then your travels brought you from Denver at that point to California?
Yeah, I thought, it'd be good to look at California as a place to retire. But the reality is, and everybody else knows, it's very expensive to run a practice in California or even live in California, given the taxation situation. So after a while, I thought maybe it's best I can join the growing ranks of employed physicians. So I moved back east.
And here you are today.
Here I am, yep.
Excellent. And you are currently at Southern Ocean Medical Center.
Correct.
With a team of physicians there.
Right. I'm happy to be one of the Meridian Hospital employees. So I'm an employed physician, which actually has a lot of advantages compared to, let's say, private practice. I was in private practice for 23, 24 years, and now the last 5-6 years I've been an employee.
And how is that different for a patient, in a patient's experience?
Well, I think that in one way, there's not the financial incentive. As a private practitioner, you may see maybe physicians doing a little bit more than they need to. I'm an employee, so whether I operate a little or a lot, I get the same pay, which is good. So there's no financial incentive for me to, let's say, like my dentist, to fill another tooth or do another gold cap. I get more money. I don't get any more money for it. So my whole emphasis is not on the financials, not on doing lots of services and getting lots of fees, but just basically focusing on the patient, delivering care to that particular patient. And I like the Meridian concept because we like to consider ourselves part of a greater picture, a big team of providers.
Right, and really focusing on well-being and well-doing on the part of all of your teammates.
Absolutely, and it's not just the physicians. We're talking about the nurses as part of our teams, even all the caregivers, the physiotherapists, the radiologists, everybody involved, even down to the cleaning staff. Everybody's involved.
And they're all part of that team.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Explain to our listeners the types and conditions of cancers that you treat.
Well, cancers, I'm basically a colon and rectal surgeon, so I'm a glorified general surgeon. I was a general surgeon for a brief period. And, general surgery is you take care of every lump and bump everywhere and every part of the body. But my practice is solely specializing just in colon and rectal surgery. And part of it is colon and rectal cancer. So I also take care of other issues which are not cancerous. But you're right, I do see a lot of colon and rectal cancers. It's the second leading cause of cancer death in the United States. So the garden variety, or the most common one, is adenocarcinoma of the colon or adenocarcinoma of the rectum.
And what can, being the second leading cause, what can, or cancer rather, people do to either prevent, or is there early detection? What are some of what's the advice that you can give to our listeners?
Right. So remember, it's not there are far more patients getting breast cancer and prostate cancer, but it's colon cancer's second leading cause of cancer death in the U.S. The number one is lung. So although we see a lot of breast and prostate cancers, the mortality is not as high as it is with colon cancer. So in terms of prevention, people often ask me, what kind of symptoms will I have? And the funny thing is most patients have no symptoms. And you'll be surprised to see a patient with an advanced cancer, and you'll ask them, do you have rectal bleeding? They'll say, no, I've not noticed any rectal bleeding. Do you have any abdominal pain? No, I've not had any abdominal pain. Most of my patients have no symptoms at all. And these cancers are found incidentally, like they might have had a colonoscopy, or they may have been noted to be anemic, where their blood count is a little low. If you start to notice symptoms, the first one will probably be bleeding. If you start getting abdominal pain or weight loss or nausea and vomiting, then it's a little late in the game. It's a little bit too late. So the whole emphasis with colon rectal cancer death prevention is to go get your screening way before the symptoms begin.
And at what age is that typically recommended, Doc?
The incidence is usually 50. So 50, being older than 50 is a risk. So I'm going to be 60 this year. So I'm at higher risk than, let's say, a 40-year-old. So I started getting colon cancer screening when I was 50. And the best test for colon cancer screening is getting a colonoscopy, which sounds kind of icky, but it's still the best test to do to look for this cancer. And patients have always told me, I don't want to get a colonoscopy. I don't want the bowel prep. But it's actually not that bad.
Right. And if someone, if a cancer is found, what is, I guess the course of treatment is very different depending on the patient. Is that correct?
Absolutely, depending on what they find, actually. The whole goal of colonoscopy is not to find the cancer, but to actually look for the precancerous growth. So this is a little bit different than breast cancer. Like in breast cancer, when you find a lump, it's already a cancer in most cases. In colon cancer, when you do colonoscopy, you're looking for the polyp. And the polyp is the precursor lesion. If you remove the polyp, you prevent the cancer. So that's good.
And that's what you're looking for.
We're looking for the polyp. But sometimes you're right. We do find the cancer, and then the treatment will depend on how bad the cancer is, what its presentation is. But generally, the treatment is surgery.
Thank you. So much more with Dr. Robert Khoo coming back right after this break. I'm Ken Malagier in for Jeremy Grunin. You are listening to Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin.
Stay tuned for Preferred Company with Joel Markell and Marianne Levy at 8. Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin continues next. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Back to Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310 and WOBMAM.com.
Good morning and welcome back. Thanks for sharing your morning with us. Ken Malagier in for Jeremy Grunin. You are listening to Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. Very pleased to have Dr. Robert Khoo in our studio this morning, talking all things colon rectal health this morning at 7:22. And we had a caller who had asked a very important question of the good doctor, and it was, Doctor, whether or not you can remove a polyp during the colonoscopy.
In most cases, yes, unless the polyp is super large. And in most cases, the polyps are small enough to be removed. Why do we want to bring somebody back? Let's just get it all done at once.
Great answer. I'm sure that many are comforted by that thought, and I do believe we have a caller on the line. We have Robert joining us to speak with Dr. Robert Khoo. Robert.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, this is a marvelous opportunity to educate us radio listeners here, since you are a doctor who's been practicing in Canada. In America here, we have what is called talk radio, which is often very right-wing, very reactionary, and whenever the question of national health single-payer plans come up, it's just on the verge of total disaster in the medical world, supposedly, and they all point to Canada. Oh, look how horrible, terrible things are in the Canada medical system. Could you please enlighten us as how bad is it in Canada for medical care? And if things are bad, why hasn't the noble Canadian people democratically voted to change it?
Thanks for the question. Doctor.
Well, keep in mind and remember that the United States is one of the last few industrialized countries that does not have socialized medicine. Speaking specifically about Canada, there are good and bad. I mean, overall, the mortality rates, the perinatal mortality, the length of longevity is much better for Canadians compared to Americans. Having said that, though, Americans are not one to wait for services. Americans like to be seen tomorrow or the next day. I can tell you that for certain specialties in Canada, like myself, there was a 1-year waiting list to see me in the office. And then after that, there was a 1-year waiting list for surgery. Unless you had cancer, then I could get you done within 6 weeks. So people have been known to die on waiting lists. I had a good friend whose father was a urologist in Ontario, and he died on the waiting list waiting for cardiac surgery. My mother got diagnosed with renal failure and had to wait almost 4 months to see a kidney specialist. So everything is rationed in Canada. If you don't mind waiting and you have the nice Canadian mindset, which we love to wait in line, then it's okay. But I don't think it's going to fly so well in the U.S. where people like to just skip to the front of the line and that's mine, me.
So do you think, Doc, it's and that's a great question, Robert. We really appreciate the call this morning. Do you think it goes really to the heart of what we've come to expect as Americans rather than the actual delivery of medical care?
Yes. Yeah. It's a little bit of both for everything. I mean, you still have probably the best technological care in the world and the access to the best technology if you have the money to have that access, though. So you're not all free and equal here, whereas in Canada you are, because your taxes do pay for it in Canada. So your beer and your alcohol is taxed at 100%. Everything is taxed in Canada. And that's probably one of the reasons why I ended up leaving, because you're just overworked and underpaid. And after a while you say, I got to go. Right.
That's so what you would, the takeaway then is obviously it is would require a huge paradigm shift, certainly in how we perceive taxation, how we perceive the delivery of medical care. Though, if you are a Canadian citizen, you could leave Canada should you want the surgery quicker, and just as you could if you were a United States citizen and go elsewhere. Is that correct, Doc?
Absolutely. Like the Premier of Quebec did for his melanoma care.
Right. Well, that was a great question. We'll be right back after this short break. We're on live with Dr. Robert Khoo from Meridian Health System.
Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. It's time to get up, get out, do something. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. Be a part of the show. 732-505-1160. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Listen online at WOBMAM.com.
Good morning and welcome back. I'm Ken Maliger in for Jeremy Grunin. Thanks for sharing part of your morning with us. You are listening to Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin, and I am joined in our studio this morning with Dr. Robert Khoo. And Doctor, we did just take another call off the air, and the listener was wondering, what are some of the root causes, and specifically, what are the best and worst things we can eat that either might contribute to colon cancer or things that might help in the prevention thereof?
Right. oftentimes a patient will come into the office and they say, I've got colon cancer. What caused this? Was it something I ate? Was it Agent Orange, radiation? Well, actually, it's probably none of those things. For the majority of the people, there are two factors. Hereditary, in other words, something may be passed on to you in the genes, maybe your mom or your dad had it, or the environment. So the environmental factors are high-fat diet, a meaty diet, obesity, and smoking. So those are the things that you want to try to avoid. Don't eat a lot of hot dogs and eat a lot of bacon and eat. I mean, you can have some, but don't go overboard.
So all the good stuff. Don't eat it.
Don't eat. I know fat tastes good, but fat's not good for you because fat gets converted to carcinogenic things. So what can you do that's good? Well, number one, you want to eat a good amount of fiber. You want to exercise daily. They say if you can, with the guidance of your doctor, take a daily aspirin and vitamin D, calcium, those kinds of things. In terms of prevention, if you're over 50, get a colonoscopy. If you're overweight, lose weight. So basically, eat less meat, eat more fiber, exercise.
What are your views on broccoli?
Broccoli, I don't really like broccoli, like one of the presidents said, but it's good for you.
It is, right?
Yeah,
I've heard it often called the miracle vegetable, that it goes such a long way in terms of what it can deliver in health as something to be added to your diet if it's not already there.
Go for it. That's what I say.
Awesome. Why are some people so afraid of having a colonoscopy, and what should we know about the procedure? Kind of dispel some rumors for some of our listeners.
Sure. Everybody tells me, and it's really sad when I see a patient who has colon cancer come to my office, and I had one recently. The family says to me, well, they could have had a colonoscopy, but they didn't want to have one because they were afraid of the prep. It was an inconvenience. They didn't want to take the time. It does take a day to prepare. In fact, I have to have my colonoscopy in early July, and the prep is not that bad. I mean, so I practice in California. We're all into cleaning ourselves out. It's the thing to do.
Right.
I feel clearer headed after a cleanse. So there's nothing wrong with the prep. It's very safe. It's very quick to do, and you do the procedure under sedation. If you do it in a hospital or wherever you do it, you'll get sedation. You won't feel a thing, and it's very, very safe.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Who's had colon cancer or polyps and the famous people to kind of put our minds at ease that it's not just the little people that get this. There's some pretty remarkable people that have been afflicted with this.
Absolutely. Ronald Reagan in 1985 had his colon resection during his second term. Audrey Hepburn, Elizabeth Montgomery from Bewitched, Charlie Schultz, who from Santa Rosa, where I lived, who did the Peanuts comics, Vince Lombardi, Pope John Paul II, Sharon Osbourne, and the list goes on. Katie Couric is the one who made everything
right, when her
famous.
husband, yes, absolutely.
She had her colonoscopy on the air, which helped alleviate a lot of stress, and people said, hey, if she could do it, I can do it.
Her late husband had passed away from colon cancer,
Absolutely.
And she's become a huge advocate.
Yep, at the age of in his 40s, he died of colon cancer.
Yeah, and that was streamed live on the Today Show, as I recall.
Right, she had her colonoscopy live, and so did some of the other members of the Today Show, which was quite interesting.
Yeah. What, Doc? What other types of surgery do you perform, and what would you consider the benefits of minimally invasive surgery?
Most of my surgeries, so if you got colon cancer, you're probably going to end up having surgery. Most of my surgeries are done laparoscopically or minimally invasive. In the old days, we were trained how to do a giant incision, but I think obviously the advantages of minimally invasive surgery are it's a smaller incision, less pain. Patients are only staying about 3 to 5 days in hospital instead of a week and a half in hospital now. And I think there are less complications and better results overall. You get back to work a lot faster.
Sure. Really cutting down that recovery time. And is recovery often able to be done at home once you leave the hospital, or does it require any rehabilitation center?
No, most people go home, and I've had some people have their laparoscopic surgery and be in Venice within 2 weeks. As long as they're not flying the plane, it's nothing wrong with that. Right. Go and enjoy yourself.
Good advice, Doc. Thank you. If someone is looking for a colon rectal surgeon, how can they find one, or how can they find you?
Well, First of all, you can always go to meridianhealth.com, or there's a free referral service called 1-800-560-9990. That's 1-800-560-9990 or Meridian Health. There are also a lot of good resources on the internet, too. You can go to the Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, just look up colon cancer. Just Google it. You'll find it.
Right. Thank you. What are some of the things that you love most about being here on the Jersey Shore? Just to kind of take our conversation off topic for a brief moment, as we wrap up in our last minute here. What do you love about living here on the Jersey Shore? I know you lived in a lot of different places.
I lived in a lot of different places, but I like the proximity to the water. It's an older population. I'm getting older, so I can sort of fit in. It's kind of a retirement haven, and there are a lot of things to do here. Even my kids love coming here. I lived a brief while in Pennsylvania. They didn't like going to central Pennsylvania. Nothing wrong with that for you Pennsylvanians out there, but nothing beats the Jersey Shore.
Right. I couldn't agree more. And it was really a pleasure to have with us this morning Dr. Robert Khoo. Of course, you can reach the good doctor or any of the great doctors and their team at Meridian at 1-800-560-9990 or visit meridianhealth.com. We'll be back after this short break.